Okay, so let's get going. And we're going to have the three authors first. And so I'm going to introduce them one at a time. And the first one is Candice James. And Candice was appointed Poet Laureate of New Westminster, BC, by order of City Council in November 2016, after serving 2 3-year terms as Poet Laureate. She's founder of Royal City Literary Arts Society and Fred Cogswell Award for Excellence in Poetry, and past president of the Federation of BC Writers. She's a member of the League of Canadian Poets and the author of 21 books of poetry through 6 publishing houses. We can buy those books at Her first book, A Split in the Water, was published in 1979. Fiddlehead Poetry Books, University of New Brunswick. Her most recent book, Behind the One-Way Mirror, was published in 2022 by Silver Bowl Publishing. So we'll welcome Candice James.
I'm sitting down inadvertently because some are memorized and some aren't. And I'm going to start with a Crescent Beach poem and end with one because I spent most of my young years down here in Crescent Beach. So water has a lot to do with me, and I have a lot to do with water. So the first one, I'm going to sit down for this one, is the Crescent Beach poem called Crescent Beach, the Water, the Sun. I miss Crescent Beach, the water, the sun, and those yesterday memories time put on the run. I never realized how fast time could fly. In a fading parade, days and evenings pass by. But there are treasured moments I'll always recall that still warm my heart, summer, spring, winter, fall. Moments with my mother walking the shore. I wish I could relive those moments once more. I miss Crescent Beach, the water, the sun, and all those sweet memories that have come undone. Now I'm going to do some that I have memorized because I do like to memorize. This one is about the arts throughout the ages, and it's called Tumbling Down. Shakespeare said it with quill and ink, and inspiration's golden link, and the words came tumbling down. In sonnets and verses, plays and prose, in theaters and traveling minstrel shows, his passion still rages and spills from the pages onto the glitter of sound sets and stages. Tumbling down, still tumbling down. Mozart said it in notes and keys, in compositions and symphonies, and the music came tumbling down, illuminating the darkness undressing, saints, sinners, and angels confessing, the agonies and ecstasies and serenades and rhapsodies, tumbling down, still tumbling down. Michelangelo said it with paints and brush, guided by an angel's touch. And the colors came tumbling down onto the Sistine Chapel ceiling, with saints, cherubs, and angels kneeling, in a masterpiece of holiness, saving grace and forgiveness, tumbling down, still tumbling down. Artists, musicians, poets, and sages, droplets of gold on history's pages, tumbling down throughout the ages. Their legacy is a living will. Their world of beauty surrounds us still, tumbling down, forever tumbling down. Oh, this one, I gotta stand up. This is an old poem, and actually even as of today, it's still my favorite. It's called Ink Stain in the Rain. How it came to be, I looked out on my patio and it had been raining, and stuff I'd written was all, all messed up. I couldn't read the poetry I'd written. It was all just big ink stain. So I thought, well, I'm gonna write this one, Ink Stain in the Rain. So, that's how this one came about. The cruel wind rapes and scrapes the soft, supple satin drapes in the cave of evening shade. Under gunmetal sky, cracked, splintered, and dry, we play our tragic masquerade. On a mantle of gloom and foreboding doom, we reach for this breed we are chasing. Daughter Time moves in and begins erasing. I reach for your hand, and your hand slips. You're gone. Waves wash me ashore, lips parched evermore, never to taste yours again. And you were engulfed by the ocean, lost to me forever. Nothing is as we planned. Now, days without sun, the moon's come undone, and I've become the rain. This one was a rhymer, but I'm getting old, so I forgot some of it, so I'll read it. I was thinking about Eden and love and all kinds of stuff, and then I thought about a movie called East of Eden. So I called this one East of Eden, West of Love. The bittersweet taste of summer wine, passion, polishing, love to a shine. Reaching nirvana, then past the brink, watching it fade like invisible ink. Promises crept away on scarred feet, stumbling down a dark, dusty street, crippled by vows we didn't keep. Love bowed her head and fell asleep. We limped away with wounded hearts, victims of our own false starts. We let the lies we hid within chafe at our hearts and wear them thin. Then beneath a burnished sky of stars, we hid inside our wounds and scars. We watched the flame grow dim, burn out, locked in the shadow of a doubt. Passion ripped off her mask and disguise, revealing alibis, secrets, and lies. Love on the rocks, paradise lost. Words turned to dust, music to frost. Teardrops scarred a scarlet moon, eclipse of the heart, midnight at noon. A silent song, a wordless rhyme. Two poets dancing out of time. An angel sighed, stars fell from above. Somewhere, east of Eden, west of love. Anyway, poems come together. I was sitting at home one night and I was just thinking to myself, what do we do tonight? What do we do? I said again, what do we do this evening? And I said, what do we do this eve, dear? What do we do? And I thought that would be a good line. I'll do a poem on that. So it's called This Eve, but it started because I was just sitting there wondering what to do. What shall we do this evening, dear? What shall we do this eve? Shall we stand worlds apart together beside love's tomb and grieve? Shall we shed a tear or two? Or shall we tell a lie? Shall we stare at separate moons or hang on days gone by? Gone are the stained glass hours we rolled through yesterday, astride the champing hearts of lovers in love's play. Gone are the star-spun nights that lit our eager hearts, bleeding with lust and love, tangled in body parts. The road that leads to yesterday is overgrown and dense, a vast, perfidious shadowland past all points of pretense. And if we dared to speak the truth, we'd be forced to confess the waning of the wandering years has caused our hearts recess. What shall we do this evening, dear? What shall we do this eve? Let us stand, worlds apart together, beside love's tomb and grieve. In New Westminster, there used to be a place called Java Jazz, and they had the best piano player in the world and probably the best singer. They closed down about 2 years ago, but I used to like to go there and listen. So I was in my sonnet writing mood, so I wrote a sonnet about Java Jazz. Those sparkling, lusty nights at Java Jazz, we slow danced close as Salve sang her soul, and Eddie played the sweetest razzmatazz as we held hands in amber candle glow. And there we were, reflecting in love's eyes, the love-light music dancing and crab cakes. Your heartbeat wove the fabric of my size before you changed the pattern to heartaches. But if I think on Java Jazz and you, those magic melodies tug at my heart, and yesterday appears out of the blue. I feel the same old thrill as at the start. There are some memories even time can't kill. I love the way we were. I always will. This one I'll dedicate to Linda because I found out she's an artist. It's called Alive in the Paint. I do some painting, but when I look at paintings I've done, I can almost see something I think maybe moves in there. It seems like something, but I look real quick, it's not moving. But I think there's got to be something living in the paint. We put it in there from our living mind, so I think this is how it came, alive in the paint. From shadow to light, purple to white, nestled between death and life. I pick up my brush in the candle glow to paint an emotion I know will flow. With passion, lust, love, and romance, fabulous rhythm and eloquent dance, where the blessed, the frail, and the obscurely quaint are part of the brilliance alive in the paint. Then I take a step back and step out of the picture. I analyze the paint and survey the mixture. I put down my brush and cross the floor, gaze into the mirror that hangs on the door. I stare at my image in shock and surprise at the secrets hiding behind my eyes. I see evidence of old truths tossed away, where guilty pleasures held court and held sway, dipping my world into ebony ink, clouding my judgment till I couldn't think, couldn't differentiate right from wrong, a symphony from a rock and roll song. So I polished my breath until it came to rest on the satin lapel of an artist's vest. Stars twinkled above as darkness undressed. I fell to my knees and humbly confessed. The world began spinning a bright shade of white as I moved from the shadow into the light, delighting the eye in the sky, I suppose, because it applauded in quiet repose. Now, if I listen closely, I can still hear the sound of that one hand clapping, the other one bowing. Then, the sound slowly fades and becomes very faint, but something still breathes alive in the paint. I got a couple more I want to do. This one was written for somebody I knew very well that passed away, and I've actually read this poem at a few of the end of life reading places where I report the equipment. They've asked me to read it sometimes for their donors. And anyway, it's quite a nice poem. I think you'll like it. Dried flowers of youth. And the beginning is my grandmother, when people died or there was weddings, she used to press the flowers between pages and close the book. So that's in here too. Dried flowers of youth crushed between pages, forgotten utterings of ancient sages, a whisper, a scream, and a drama between, life unraveling at the seam. A young man running through early chapters, hobbling toward final ever afters. You leave this world more every day. Slowly, you're slipping and sliding away into that netherland of yesterday. And oh, that I could follow you there and leave behind this worry and care, to build with you castles on the beach in that world you visit when you're out of reach. Whispers and memories of your sweet song, when you were young, when you were strong. Before the years made your bones ache, before your hands started to shake, before you had to be wheeled in a chair, before time left you nothing to spare. Dried flowers of youth are crumbling now, gracing the stage in their final bow. Your frailty of heart will soon set you free, and far, far you'll fly away from me, to a place where streets are paved in gold, where dreams cannot be bought or sold, where music never ceases to play. It will call to you softly and take you away. And as you leave this world behind, the best part of me will become undefined. And my last poem now, another Crescent Beach poem. I wanted to start and end with a Crescent Beach poem. This one's called Water and Rain. I long to go down to the shore again, to hear the water speak to the rain, to see the seagulls fly on high, to hear the sadness in their cry. The days of life are beginning to fade, an age-old stain on invisible suede. The mast now hung with ragged sail, the long and winding path grows pale. The sky-blue skies have turned to gray, and soon my soul will fly away. And I long to go down to the shore again, to hear the water speak to the rain. Down to the Crescent Beach shore again, to hear the water speak to the rain, to hear it whisper my name.
Our next poet, has a very short introduction bio, but we don't want to let that detract from the poems that he's going to read, because they are excellent. Walker Lee is a retired general contractor and musician. Walker's novella, Life in the Times of Coronavirus, is a diary of poetry and prose. I'm just lying on a blanket, staring at the stars. Eventually I'll write it all down, but right now I'm just enjoying the view. Walker?
That was very impressive. You were writing poetry in 1979, and I was delivering poultry to restaurants in San Francisco. And you've clearly done this before. I have not. Thankfully, I brought my glasses so I can read this. Oh wait, there's nothing on this. That's right. We're writers. We all start with the blank page.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing there until we sit down and make it happen. We all start with this, the blank page. Sometimes you stare at it, and try as you might, it doesn't respond until you have an idea. For some people, writing is a passion. For some, it's a hobby. For some, it's a way to entertain themselves. Maybe you feel like you have something to say, but regardless, we all start with this. Words are important, and if you can use them efficiently, then you have a chance to communicate. Writers dress up words in finery. You can use them That's not that there's anything wrong with the day-to-day clothes, but we prefer to drape them in silk and make them sing. Or coarse like the feel of a burlap bag against your skin. They can be happy, or mad, or selfish, or sad, but still, they're only words, and it's how we use them that separates from the exquisite to the mundane. You may see a yellow fence, but a writer sees a white fence transformed by the moon's buttery glow. I spend way too much time talking, casting words aside frivolously to explain when all I really care about is one perfect sentence that says it all and seems effortless in the attempt. To say there is a dying in the sunrise and appreciate all that implies is to know the satisfaction that we can attain when you love words. And perhaps if you're fortunate enough, you'll meet a group of people who also stare at the blank page, and you can share your ideas with them. This would be a shameless plug for our group anthology, although Don's told me we have no more, so feel free not to buy it. Obviously, I'm working from notes here because I haven't memorized anything. I can't even remember what I was going to try to say. There's a dying in the sunrise. During the pandemic, I was isolated, afraid and not sure what the reality I'd taken for granted my whole life would look like moving forward. I'd sit in my office each morning and drink coffee, write, and observe my neighbors. This eventually evolved into a diary, and then my first book, my only book, Life in the Times of Coronavirus. That's me on the back, smiling and trying to look interesting. What's going on? Can it be fixed? Is this life nothing more than sunrises and sunsets until we die? These are the manifestations of a man who's confused, alienated, and honestly has far too much time on his hands. There's a dying in the sunrise. Days blur into weeks. Weren't the cherry blossoms just here? Each morning starts anew, monitoring the stock market, anticipating greed's demise, and editing my book that I both love and despise. I look out the window to see my neighbor wearing a t-shirt that simply says alone. A chord resonates deep inside, and momentarily I share that loneliness. It isn't until he turns in my direction that I see the shirt actually says aloha. The mind plays tricks 2 years in pandemia. People are heroic. People are cruel. Seasons roll by on unbalanced wheels, while masses awkwardly dance to music only they can hear. Quarantine creates freedom to go within, while feeling deprived without. It's become apparent that pretense and words cannot protect us from ourselves. So I isolate and dream. I pull the oars in the boat and I drift a while. I fall asleep. In my slumber, the water's calm. The little boat bobs up and down in a sea of me. Eyes strain as mirages tease. Upon each approach, the shore moves further still. I'm surrounded by tides of opposing sides. My contempt grows as rapid waters flow under an empty bridge of sighs. So I tether and breathe and hold my place in lonely grace. Delivering poultry. Time. This the second piece I wrote is called Time. Is this right? Oh, shoot, no, I've got my. Okay. We're all dogged by the clock, the passing of time which occurs whether we acknowledge it or not. In trying to write a piece about the marking of that time, I had a line running through my head that I liked a lot. Time is a wicked stealer. I thought it expressed very succinctly my own feeling about the steady, inexorable drumbeat that we all hear. But I knew it wasn't my line. I'd seen it somewhere else. So I tried to find a replacement. And this is the piece that evolved from that. You're so much more organized than I was.
I'm so much older. I better be.
Time. 6 a.m. was never a friend of mine, but now that I have all the time in retirement, I can't sleep. Thoughts chase, birds sing, the building talks to me in strange and wonderful ways. Time is a wicked stealer when you've been trapped among the ruins. The line I was considering for my book, Life in the Times of Coronavirus, I really liked that line. I wanted that so badly to be mine, but it wasn't. It was keeping me up at night. So you want to write? Prepare to be haunted, awake or asleep by characters that don't exist. Words that you've never heard or don't understand. Lines so apt, but are they mine? They start as whimsy until 6 a.m. arrives again. I had to find a line to replace time as a wicked stealer. As much as I love it, I'm sure I saw it somewhere. My words must be true, and even though they've all been said before, I must wholeheartedly believe they originate from me. So a simple replacement, time stalks when you've been trapped among the ruins. But then I have to try harder, maybe more complex. Time is a waft of ambrosia for the starving. Time is a cadre of characters false. Time creates a heyday for hope. Time unveils only to be stolen. Unveils. Time's the sorcerer that never ceases. Sorcerer. It's a dramatic pause. Time doesn't respect your plans. Time's repose among the ruins. Time chooses, ready or not, and marches to that steady, inexorable beat. Through a stifling heat or freezing still, time doesn't feel, or heal, or steal. Time just exists, and there's never enough. Time stalks when you've been trapped among the ruins. All my pretty prose and use of words I don't really even know. I have no idea what a veil means. And less, as always, less is more. The simple, the path of straight to the point. Time stalks. I like it. Problem solved, for at least for now. The end of my book, because I wanted some way to sum up the experience that I was having with the people that lived in my building. Robin and I had just moved to White Rock in July of 2019. The pandemic started 6 months later. We hardly even knew the people in our building. Suddenly we're not allowed to talk to anybody, touch anybody, get too close to anybody. We're all wearing masks. So that was kind of I wanted to do something to address that at the end of my book. There were ghosts in this building. Blithe spirits roamed the halls, waiting for the next victim. There were none. There were many. Time stalks when you've been trapped among the ruins. We'd plan and we'd plot, was those that slid betwixt and between. Occupants who'd check in from time to time, parallel lives piled one on top of the other. The ghosts were unconcerned, while the living were just trying to stay alive. Either way, it was life of the times. And then I have one more. So, being a new writer and trying to think of interesting things to write about is sometimes difficult. But I came up with the idea of a word farm, a farm where you can harvest words. The idea of the day of the life of writer came to be as I described the process, expressing myself with the written word. The idea of a farm where words were planted and cultivated to create bumper crops of expression, and that appealed to me. I love words. I love to read, and admittedly I talk a lot. Probably too much. But that is who I am, and in this attempt to express with those harvested words, an idea that grew from the word farm, what a typical day for someone like me would look like, working on a novel, or expressing admiration for writers that I passionately read. Words are the seeds we plant to grow ideas. A day in the life of a writer. Morning. Settling in for another day, back bent to the rapidly approaching heat of summer. The word farmer kneels and lovingly tends the soil, digging furrows and planting a new crop of descriptions, analysis, and long straight rows of irony and amusement, hoping for beauty to occur from such a haphazard accumulation. The backspace key is employed repeatedly until the virgin soil waits for a prolonged period that seems to stretch on for days. I just got the blank page again. Fallow, wanton, silent. Farming parts of speech and assembling them for consumption by an asserting audience of one. That's me. The word farmer reads and erases an entire season's crop based on nothing more than the bottom of the page. Plow too low and we fall into a deep and restless mindset, unhappy with anything that blooms. Just skim the surface and the seeds are washed away by the slightest bit of moisture from the sky. Rains that fall slowly are nourishing, although a steady downpour accumulates in muddy furrows with a pile of words at one lonely end of an untended garden. Coffee break. I spent hours editing 2 of the books I'm working on. I made a mess of them both. Maybe writing first thing in the morning before I've had my coffee isn't such a great idea after all. The path is endless. I work and create more work. I tend the garden and overwater and kill anything that just left alone would have flourished. Meddling, needing to alter that which is already perfect, constantly tinkering, adding a sentence when silence would have sufficed, loving smile, and knowing that things are all right. I can't do that. I need to edit. I need to try to make it better. What am I trying to say? Afternoon. Finally, I've had something to eat. I'm feeling a bit better. Daily, I pursue the bits of me that have fallen between these keys, down amongst the computer chips and LEDs, microscopic bits of my DNA lost in a series of lightning fast relays, while my slow and addled brain tries to write something witty about the weather. Typewriters and cigar smoke-filled rooms and crystal glasses filled with amber liquids have been long replaced by devices stretched out upon desks of the overinformed and underwhelmed. You knew everything you needed to know before you took the time to read this, but still you want more. So I give you the stars in the sky as they look down upon these gossamer wings. How fragile we are, so in need. A lonely breed in search, while right before our eyes all answers lie. If only we would see sunsets, flowers, April showers, all gifts, taking gifts 24 hours a day. Evening. I don't know of any other way to do this. Pretense none. Bare soul shivering. This is my diary, my therapy, my sanctuary. There are men like F. Scott who drunkenly assault my passion so pleasing that I stand and bow to their eloquence. There are those that with prose create adventures that I've only experienced in the deepest recesses of my dreams, and still it seems I endeavor, not to compare, but to share, and swim in those exalted waters that we all know exist, and content in the attempt. Good night.
And our third reader, author, is Linda Pearce. And Linda is an artist and writer who lives in Ocean Park, Surrey. She spent her childhood in a remote gamekeeper's cottage in Buckinghamshire and a boarding school in Shropshire. Linda worked 20 years as a primary teacher in Surrey, kindergarten being her specialty. She is the victim of a genetic predisposition to the arts that has run rampant through her maternal line, producing painters, printmakers, dancers, and actors, and infected her with a voice that requires both visual and verbal expression. Linda has made a number of books, including The Song of Sulace, a one-of-a-kind handwritten and illustrated art book in collaboration with Jack Turpin. Summer of Fires, an illustrated poem available for reading through the Brooklyn Art Library. Farida's War, written for her mother's 90th birthday. Scratching Initials, a published book of illustrated poems. She is currently working on a series of poems inspired by the titles of library books. Linda?
Thank you. It's lovely to hear these two readers, and thank you very much for doing this. I'm going to read some poems. The first one is sort of self-evident, so I'll just dive right in. Maybe some of you have had this experience as well as me. And I've read it to some of you before, but hopefully if you do remember it, you don't mind hearing it again. It's called Baby Moment. I had a baby moment today, in the Safeway next to the bins of fresh buns. One of those warm honey moments, when after speaking in a high-pitched voice, grinning with the enthusiasm of a gorilla spotting a bunch of bananas, making faces and doing peekaboo, the tiny being smiles. Not just a face smile, a leg pumping, arm flapping, torso wriggling, full body event that cracks the heart like a geode under a hammer. Baby's eyes seem to hold some kind of ethereal wisdom, as if that they retain a memory we've long forgotten, a fading knowledge of what came before. They exude the confidence that they still have the angels on speed dial. I imagine their souls, ladled out of the collective pool, extruded through the crucible of birth into the boom bang of our sensory world, where any previous memory is gradually drowned out by the constant stimulation of earthly existence, drawing them into full presence and engagement. I also imagine But after this instant we call our lifetime draws to a close, they in turn surrender all memory of this world, and after passing through the canal of death, eventually plop back into the pool, their souls scrubbed clean. But today, light lit by sun peeking through the clouds and streaking through the store window, a smile. And the next 3 poems I'm going to read are the ones inspired by the titles of library books. I didn't read the books, so they have nothing to do with the actual book. I just used the title for a prompt for suggesting a poem to me. So this one I've never read before, so anybody in my reading group will not have heard this one. The title of the library book is called The Lost Chapter by Carolyn Bishop. The poem is called Dangling. I know there is a lost chapter. The knowledge is lodged in my sternum with intrinsic certainty. I feel an urgency to fill page after page, wring myself out like a dishcloth, have all the questions about meaning typed into a cohesive whole in Arial font, the pages lined up and stapled in the corner, so that my wandering wayward life, tossed like fluff on a sea breeze, can be funneled into a jar of clear purpose. What is unclear, what hovers like a hummingbird against my brain, is where it fits. What part of the story is missing? Is it the part where I learn to play clarinet, write a novel, paint large abstracts or travel the world? Or the one where I live in another country and work for a non-profit? Does it track my relationships like footprints on a snow map, smoothing out misunderstandings and spreading honey on thoughtless acts? I've tried at times to write it with slow, careful hand, but then carelessly left the pages next to an open window, or spilled coffee across them. It might be the last chapter, the one that pulls everything together, like gravy over a meal, to peak and blend the flavors. Or have I missed it, let it pass by, and submerge into the vast underworld of the unspoken, without recognizing its significance? Perhaps there's a freedom in an unwritten chapter, a breadth of potential still available, and however many chapters are written, one is always missing. Perhaps to be left dangling is the point. And I made a little chapbook for when I had an art show of some of the poems. This one is the library book that I used to inspire this one was called When I Was You by Amber Garza. It's called In This Place. When we were each other, your shoes rattle on my feet, causing bright blisters. The sun comes up in the west and I drag a suitcase heavy with unwanted thoughts. There are explosions too in my periphery vision. I wonder, how do you do this? The view from here is blurred, and the path is strewn with animal bones. I can't find home or any even ground. The traffic lights are all yellow, suspended, and go, stop. I wait. People and dogs jump over me, as if their lights were green. The road rises up and snakes around my head. Cars slide backwards, fall toward me like missiles. And where are my gloves? My hands are cold. Your hands are so warm, you never wear them. When we are each other, my heart fills with foam, like that insulation they shoot into walls. Its voice muffled, the sounds foreign. What? What are you saying? Time travels unevenly, sometimes stopping altogether. Excuse me. Sometimes rushing in chaotic rapids. When we are each other, a drop of coffee turns into a never-ending drawing of balls and posts and dwellings that project exquisite welcome, but where no one lives. When we are each other, I listen to people's stories so intently, I glut with information. It pours out of my ears and mouth until I almost suffocate. In the end, I curl up in the forest, slide between the roots of the voiceless trees. They cradle me in leaf mulch, while chipmunks and kinglets patter around me. I breathe slowly. And you are there, with bloodshot eyes, and I recognize you. Our tension seeps into the sword ferns. Mushrooms sprout between our toes. I feel my roots engage. In this place, we can be each other. The book was called The Billionaire Who Wasn't, by Conor O'Cleary. And the poem I wrote was, Does Size Matter in Yachts? I think of oligarchs, Putin's darlings, wealth wrung out of Russians, stored in other countries. Questions back up like rush hour traffic. How does it feel to have massive wealth, living the life in a stratosphere separate from the rest of us? I look down at my shirt bought for $3 at the thrift shop. Is there a course in ostentation? Or do they learn it from other oligarchs, sitting around in coffee shops comparing the size of their yachts? Does size matter in yachts? Or is it the add-ons, the pools, the helipads, the underwater rooms, the amphibious shuttles that carry Land Rovers to shore? I read that one yacht had 2 helipad pads. Why? Oh, Pavel, I just popped over from my yacht around the bay. Can you spare a cup of sugar? I'm baking a cake. Do they fly their children to private school? Do oligarchs have children? Families that love them? Or just a string of very young women? It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a man in possession of a $50 million yacht is exponentially more attractive. Are there stratas of oligarchy? And is it all about money? Or might one of more modest wealth, say a couple of billion, be valued for some other qualities, being a really nice person, for example? But then the term oligarch in itself suggests corruption. Do they ever have qualms about their lifestyle, the huge footprint their acquisitions make on the planet? Or spare a thought for the pregnant women being bombed in Ukraine as they sail to Dubai and the Seychelles to avoid sanctions? If all their assets are taken, are they still oligarchs? Amid a quality of oligarchishness? Or do they slip into the general mishmash of humanity? Some good, some bad, but mostly a mixture of both. Ninth book. It's a book of poems and drawings, so every poem has a drawing in it. This one is called Puppet Masters. We make effigies of ourselves, with shiny scraps and bits from trunks and chests stored in dusty chambers of our hearts. We send them out holding hands to live our lost lives, feed them our yearnings, point directions to tender heart wishes, and stories altered to snugly fit our dream. They live out perfection in sun-slanted forests, barefoot on beaches, naked in lakes, flying with eagles through cracks in the sunset. They tune up their voices to sing the old songs, warming their feet in vats of wild honey, rolling in blossoms, at rest in goose down. In the cold of the dawn, they melt at our feet. We label containers and stuff them back in. We are puppet masters. Our program is written. Ink's dry in the contract. The show must go on. This book of poems was dedicated to my sister. She died young, and I found a book that she used to read when she was young after I inherited it from my mother. Had her little handwriting in the front on the flyleaf, and so I took a page from separate page for each poem, and I took the vocabulary from the book and created the poems that are in this book. So. The next one is called Why Do People Ever Go to Sea? It's like a call, they say, a summons to sail out of that great green and stable vastness, Ride the rollers like winding mountains, up and down, tilting the horizon. The horizon, my guide, my constant, the caress of earth and sky. I spill coffee over nautical maps, and my fingers cling to the rating like crab claws. My steely eyeballs swivel downward, toward dark fathoms, thick, translucent, so very, very deep. The welter of water works like hypnotic suction, a beckoning lap and swirl. Ribbons of foam reach up to knot around my limbs. A tide of memory sweeps backward, fidget spins mind's corners, and teases a kernel of effortless knowing. Gasp for air, a tiny synapsis, still firing, whispers of the weightless ease of an elastic spine, harmonized to ebb and flow, the thrum and pulse of fin and tail, ease of swim, float, glide, in and out of gills, vision blurred through a liquid prism, the mossy taste of algae, and the wah-wah beat against the drums of my This one is called That Other Grass. When the heavy gates opened, there it was, miles of emerald fecund lushness. We were mesmerized, could not believe it. We always thought it was a myth. The blades, like floating fertile feathers, were close together, bending gently as air passed through, springing back after each step. Many of our number ran headlong, arms open, ecstatic. The rest of us stood, immobile, unable to make our feet step across. Toes curled and touched the familiar sun-scorched stubble. Our chests yearned the beauty, but something held us back. We cried out with craving as we tried to force our feet forward. It was no good. Eventually we went back to work in our familiar coarse dirt, stopping at times to look longingly through the opening and watch our friends roll and rollick in sensual pleasure. When several days passed, in silent consent we closed the gates. The sound of voices could still be heard, singing from the other side. Occasionally the gates opened, slightly, and someone stepped back. Arms hanging, face haggard, and without talking, they just silently took up their tools. Sometimes it would work the other way. Someone would drop a hoe and with a grating of hinges slid through, exalted shouts seeping back on the wind. Time passed, and the voices faded until only an elephant silence remained. Some whispered they had moved further away and were building houses and establishing themselves in great luxury and ease. Others maintained they had all died, used up by their exhilaration. The seasons turned, memory faded, brambles rambled across the gates, and we forgot they were there. But the stories slither and slide with a life of their own, and our children heard tales of heavy gates and a shiny, verdant country. It's just a myth, we told them. It comes spring, when our grass greens gently for a little while. Those of us who were there and saw the brilliance of it avoid each other's eyes, afraid to see reflected our own hollow, restless ache and overwhelming sense of loss. Called a crow feather. Thank you all for sitting so long. A crow feather just drifts across my path on my morning walk. It is bent at the tip and frayed down one side. I imagine it left by the rather scruffy, hard-knocked black crow I saw yesterday among a group of sleeker, younger birds. I read his throaty calls as admonishments. You kids today don't know nothing about being crows. French fries, scones, you don't know nothing, you don't even know you're born. He lifts his wings and pecks at a couple of the others. They shift away from him. Yeah, Gramps, give it a rest. We got better things to do than listen to you blather. Blather, is it, you young brat? I'd like to see how you survive on carrion and worms. And nests. Don't get me started. All we had in the old days was dried grass and sticks. Now it's all plush fabrics and stuffing. Get over yourself, you old coot. Times have changed. It's a young crow's world now. The group sniggers and struts around him. The old crow fluffs up his neck feathers, stretching as tall as he can. You think you're so smart? I'd like to see you coping in a nest with a twig sticking in your bum. He grumbled on. Don't know nothing about being crows. You'd never survive in the deep woods foraging for real food, eating grubs and baby birds. You'd be running to your mummies in the first 5 minutes. As I moved away, a tussle broke out. I turned to look back, and from inside a whirl of feathers, I heard his scratchy voice. Get away, you little ingrate. I saw that spawn first.
She's been writing poetry for quite some time. Sanjana Karthik. She's our youngest member. She's on a full ride scholarship to UBC in sociology with awards. I'm going to read this. This is good. With awards ranging from top 25, under 25 award to close look influencer award. She hopes to work in the restorative justice field. Sanjana has her writing organization, Your Words Matter to Us, and mental health app, My Esprit. She is head of the mental health campaign, BCYC, and the host and co-founder of the Shaw Multicultural Show. The reality is, she has 1,000+ hours of volunteering, dedicating time towards Special Olympics, senior homes, hosting annual fundraisers, etc. She has also worked for Small File Media Festival and acted as an editor for magazines and books. Her poetry and articles have been recognized by the mayor of White Rock in various magazines and radio stations. She has edited anthologies, books, and magazines for Close Look Productions. She constantly engages with her community and, get this, advocates for men's rights, mental health, restorative justice, and other integrated topics. She is also currently working on internships in the principles of psychology and writing letters to prisoners using 3 principles of psychology. Sanjana's going to share 2 of her poems.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. I'm super excited. I remember when I first moved to White Rock, I really wanted to write, and I'm so glad I was able to reach out to Karen and join the writing clubs and the open mic events, and I just really missed the community. This is my first event that I'm attending after the pandemic. So yeah, this is really exciting for me, and as mentioned, I'm doing a sociology degree, so I'm learning a lot about social justice, and I thought it would be really nice to attribute or to share a poem, 2 poems actually, around being Indian and racism, and just kind of honoring that culture and our history. So I have 2 poems around that. The first one is called An Indian Girl. I used to feel uncomfortable in my own skin, my dark brown hue, and even my kin. I longed to be white, a product of systematic racism. I longed to feel accepted, but instead was locked in a prison of my mind, of my culture feeling less than divine. Worrying about tanning, worrying about police brutality, worrying about feeling like an outcast, I lost my sanity. Not being represented in books, eyes gazed through when we were younger, feeling like an exception as opposed to society's member. And then I have another one. It's also pretty short. It's called More Than a Race. I'm grateful for my Indian mother's curls. I'm grateful for my Indian family's pillar of support. I'm grateful for feeling like I can always talk to them. They're my refuge against the world. I can quarrel with them one day and then feel love the next. I can be 1,000 miles apart, 60 years old, and my family's hands will be the ones that I still hold. I am blessed with food with delicious spices, taught about spirituality and all forms of kindness, the birth of yoga and Ayurveda, a country that never laid a hand on another. India fought off inequalities, discrimination through peaceful protest, and ended colonization. India redeems themselves despite all of the racism through the burning of our temples and the cultural genocide of our people. Through their kindness, their values, the sense of community, that the love that I, as an Indian girl, am lucky to carry with me. Thank you.
Dennis Kifiak enjoys various art forms, including wood carving, painting, and writing poetry. His writings have been published in magazines, newspapers, and greeting cards. Dennis's poetry is fueled by his early life, immigrant heritage, and international travels. He's a member of the White Rock and Surrey Writers Club and the BC Federation of Writers. Dennis has just produced a small book of his poems, which you'll be happy to provide later. Dennis?
Thanks, Tom. And yes, the title of this little book that I just put together is called No Stone Left Unturned. And yesterday was Father's Day, so this poem is about fathers. I was raised in southern Alberta on the prairies, and Dad went out with a pick and shovel and dug stones and all the rest of it you have to do in order to make a go of it. And so this poem is about no stone left unturned. I watched my father with pick and shovel, horse and wagon, carve his signature upon the prairie. Jaw set defiantly, conquers the land. Straw hat shields his eyes. Like a bumblebee, he moves from buffalo bean to buffalo bean. He moves from hill to hill, eyes scanning for stones, digs large stones, uses a crowbar for leverage, a log chain to pull them out. When he discovers boulders too large to move, to dislodge, he tunnels beneath, places a dynamite stick with a 5-foot fuse, strikes a match, then runs. Lies flat with head down, prays. Kaboom! Voila, the rock splits. Shards fly. Dad grins. Another story to tell. A mile away at home, the single panes rattle. Mother stands anxious, wondering, praying, and for Dad homesteading, no stone is left unturned. And this is kind of a fun one called Talking Shoes. Last night, I awoke with a start. In the pause of night to banter. I thought it was you, my dear, talking to me in one of your dreams. But when I crept out of bed and tiptoed into the hall, the voices were unfamiliar. I could not recall their faces. It wasn't until I peeked around the entrance hallway corner did I discover to my surprise our shoes talking to each other. Tongues frolicking in and out, like puppies licking lollipops. My walking shoes told your sneakers where to go and how fast to get there. Meanwhile, in hushed-tone slippers, tried to bring peace, telling walkers and sneakers they would wake us up. Sandals kept saying they needed a holiday. Tongues were humming bass, brogues were humming bass, and in the front closet, slingbacks in contralto, with platform shoes talking tenor. High heels soprano, and work boots alto, to the tune of High Diddly Dum. Who stole a cookie from the cookie jar? Enthralled. I neglected the cold, sneezed. Their faces went rigid, jowls went slack, their eyes instantly filled with laces, their wagging tongues hung out. In the morning over toast and coffee, I couldn't convince my wife it was real.
And Doreen Tadros is also with us, and Doreen was a major contributor to our anthology in terms of her poems and poetry. Doreen was born in England and married in Egypt, emigrating to Canada in 1968. Since she moved to White Rock in 2010, she has enjoyed writing, especially poetry. She lives with an old grouchy cat whom she rescued from a shelter. I hope the cat is still with you.
Yeah.
She lives with an old grouchy cat whom she rescued from a shelter. Not that the cat is at all grateful.
She bit me this morning.
Oh.
And looked at me to say, what are you going to do about it? But I love her.
Is that hand, the cat biting you?
Oh no, she bit this one. No,
Oh.
this is from cancer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I've got, Don asked me to read from the Coastlines anthology. So I've got 2 poems there. Does anybody know the year that White Rock Pier became 100 years old?
No.
No, I've forgotten. It was a few years back, 4 or 5. I'm sorry, I don't know it. But it's about, this was what I wrote for the 100th year of the White Rock Pier. Our pier has stood 100 years, witness to White Rock's pioneers, here in Semiahmoo Bay, inviting you and me to play, or sit and dream, or while away an hour or 2. A place where God once dipped his hand and carved the bay and poured the sand, creating beauty unsurpassed. Then a great white rock he cast upon the beach and left it there for all to wonder. White Rock's a place to live and be, a slice of heaven by the sea. Laughing loudly, children run through tidal pools warmed by the sun to catch a crab or find a shell or 2 or 3. We celebrate with pride this year the 100 years we've loved our pier. Walking along its length we dream of days that never end, but seem to predict another 100 years or more. Just a moment in time. As I walk along the water's edge, I turn to see my footsteps in the sand. Looking out over the vastness of the ocean, I start to dream. Is this the first time I've walked this earth? Was I among the very first fish to step out of the sea, making the very first footprints in the sand? Did I follow in Christ's footsteps beside the Sea of Galilee, listening to his message of love? Was I there? Is it possible that I stepped onto the bus and sat in the back, watching as Rosa Parks bravely walked toward the front? Did I cower in fear? Maybe I marched the city streets with Martin Luther King as he led his people toward his dream of freedom. Was it my dream too? I stop my reverie and turn again to see the flat sand where my footprints showed just moments ago, like the fleeting moments of our lives, just a moment in time.
Well, thank you very much, Doreen.